I always wanted to serve on a jury.
I'm really super excited to be here, so I really appreciate you having me. I'm looking forward to it.
Creating this whole trial daddy.
I want to give a big shout out to the 13th Jury Podcast and Brandy.
Yeah, I applaud you guys. Keep doing what you're doing.
That every time you run into Phil Barber, you should reach for it.
And then I just looked to the jury, and it's sort of like, look.
I was in the eye of the storm, and you guys were watching the storm.
Hey, if you're bored of work, come pop in and say, hey, want some coffee?
You are a ray of sunshine, and I love what you've done with your YouTube channel.
Hello, jurors. Welcome back. Welcome back. Y'all come on, take your seats. Ricky Watson, gifted 5 memberships. Thank you, Ricky Watson. Thank you, thank you. Thank you. Oh, wow, look at my hair. I guess I could have brushed it. Bah. Who needs to brush hair? It is good to see y'all. Long time no see. It's been about half an hour. And now we're back. Come on in. Take your seats. Welcome back. Lucy did... Oh! Lucy! Where'd you go, big girl? Oh, there you are. Oh, here, let me... Look, she's like sitting here, like at attention waiting. I forgot to give her her TREAT when we got back inside. My bad. My bad. Here you go. This is one of those that you chew on for a long time. It's like the beef something or other that, I don't know what the hell it is. I just feed it to her. And she loves them. Why can't I... break it? You don't need the whole thing. Here you go. Good girl. Good girl. Such a good dog. Such a good dog. Where are you going? No, I'm not giving you more. That's your 3rd treat today, big girl. 3rd treat today. She is spoiled rotten. Spoiled rotten. Mama Smith gifted a membership. Also, thank you, Mama Smith. Thank you, thank you. Thank you for the gifted memberships. I love gifted memberships. I love making our little family grow. Oh, speaking of which, somebody asked me how many subscribers we had. Let me check. 19,580. Ooh, ooh. That means we are 420 away from 20K. That's crazy, isn't it? Crazy, crazy, crazy. But also very exciting. Very exciting. Oh, I need to change this. The little floating heart thing gets in the way when I'm trying to tag. There we go. There we go. So, I am glad to see y'all. Welcome back. We are going to do an introduction to this crazy, crazy case. Some of you have spent a lot of time with me covering this and already know a lot about it. Some of you have kind of come in and out. Some of you have been hiding, trying not to get involved, and for that I don't blame you. So today we are going to do a introduction for everything that you need to know about this case. Now, I will tell you my thoughts on the case. Sort of. I have been very particular about not saying what I think happened, because I don't want, because this one is so like everybody hates everybody type. I have not said what I think happened, and some people, everybody thinks that they know what I think, but everybody who has thought that they know what I think has been wrong. But you know, it doesn't seem to matter. Facts don't matter on the internet. So I will tell you, as far as my view on this case, it's like this. This is the best way I know how to explain it. You know how, for those of you who have listened to episode 10, the one I put out yesterday. I hear the fighter jets out. I love them. The one that I put out yesterday. You know how I was talking about the Bowden defense, and it's like Bowden and third-party culprit defense. So this is kind of where I'm at on this. So the Bowden defense, and I went over this in the episode, like I said, but the Bowden defense is a defense that's kind of like, it's completely based on the inadequacy of a police investigation. So it's basically like the defendant can say, or the defense can say, you know, that there are so many deficiencies and problems and omissions in the police investigation that alone creates reasonable doubt. Also, if there's information about a potential third-party culprit that police knew about but they didn't investigate, a lot of people call it like kind of tunnel vision, then that can also be considered like part of Bowden defense. So not necessarily entering in the third-party culpability, but knowing that there is a potential third-party culprit that, you know, had potential involvement but was never investigated, that can be admissible under the Bowden defense as well, to prove that the police knew that there could be somebody else as a suspect and they did not take reasonable steps to investigate that suspect. For example, going into the Albert home when they found the body, things like that. That is Bowden defense. So the third-party culpability defense is the defense where like it's actually listing the who they think it is. Like you know, when Yannetti had said that, he said in that the one hearing when they were originally talking about this, he had requested not to start with it, which this is something that a lot of people on the internet got wrong too. Again, who needs facts on the internet, right? But this is something that a lot of people got wrong, I noticed. When Yannetti didn't say anything about, well, none of the defense said, and we'll see it because we're going to watch some of the hearings, but Yannetti didn't say anything about wanting to open with the third-party culpability defense. He didn't say wanting to jump right in there with it. What he said was that he's going for Bowden defense, and he may introduce, as evidence comes in, he might introduce third-party culpability based on the evidence. That's what he said. That's what they asked for, and that's exactly what Bev granted. So it was crazy to me to see people saying, like, oh, you know, he got denied and told that he couldn't open with it. He never wanted to open with it. He specifically said that that's not what he was looking to do. He was looking to go with the Bowden defense, but and then introduce, you know, evidence and potentially go through the third-party culpability. He wanted it to be, not that he didn't want it to go in, but I'm saying he never asked to like open with it. He specifically had said bringing facts in and bringing admissible evidence in and all that. So what she granted was very fair, and it's exactly what he asked for. So you know, but the third-party culpability defense is different, kind of intertwined, but different than the Bowden defense. So it's, you know, more based on specific person or people who are, you know, listed as probably or that they say are to blame for this. So the reason I'm going over these two is because when it comes to my views on the case, people that attack me and stuff are all, like you think this and you think this and you think this. I will tell you what I think, because everybody seems to think that they know what I think. I will tell you what I think. I think that where my views lie right now are Bowden defense. I'm not saying that it's completely third-party culpability defense. I'm not saying that I think that there's enough there to, go out blaming the Alberts and the McCabe's or whoever else in Canton, Massachusetts that they want to. I'm not saying that, and I've never said that. I have never once said that. I have never. Okay, for y'all listening that keep telling me what I think, I have never once said that. What I have said is basically everything that goes along with the Bowden defense. I have said that there have been so many issues with the investigation and so many deficiencies with the investigation and omissions and all that alone provides people with, or the jury with, reasonable doubt. That has been my stance all along. I think that there is reasonable doubt. I am very open to hear whatever comes out at trial, but I think that with all of the problems that have presented themselves with this, there is no way that I can look at this and say, yes, she is guilty beyond a reasonable doubt before we have even made it to trial, y'all. Before we have even made it to trial. So that's where I stand on it. I am open to hear the evidence and make decisions. Yeah, I love how people tell you that what you believe isn't actually what you believe. You'd be surprised. People constantly tell me what I think is wrong. I'm like, oh, did you ask me what I think? No? Oh, okay. Move along. So that's where I'm at with it. I fully believe that based on everything we've seen, there's reasonable doubt. I think that questions on both sides, holes on both sides, will hopefully either be answered or not during trial. And if there are questions left at the end of the trial, that is reasonable doubt. That's reasonable doubt. So I am not, I have never once blamed anybody else for it. I have said these are the reasons that these theories have come up. These are the situations or pieces of evidence that have come out that support this or support that. But I have said from the beginning that I am open to this. I see that there's reasonable doubt, and I have been very critical of the investigation. So that is where I stand. I would love it if people would stop telling me what I think. That gets a little old. But, that's where I stand. Am I going to watch Karen Reed trial live or start later every day? I love me some speed trialing, but for this one, I am going to do it live every day. This is one that I have spent 9 months at least, diving headfirst into and researching and living and breathing and all of that. So I will be doing this one live. I love me a good speed trial, but this is one that I'm not going to be able to speed trial this one. I have to see everything as it happens. So we will do that. So that's that. All right, y'all. I am going to, let me pull up the website. 13th Juror Podcast.com. Welcome. 13th Juror Podcast. Streaming with oh, look at there. Look, hold on, let me fix her camera. Lucy moves around too much. Look, now she's got her treat in her and she's all like fat and happy. Let me make this a little bit. Look at that fat baby. All right. So let's start with just the basic who's who and the timeline and all of that. No trial today or tomorrow. Openings will start Monday at 10 a.m. Eastern. So that is where we are going to... Oh my God, can y'all believe it's finally almost here? All right, so this is 13jurorpodcast.com. So I've got the timeline stuff right here, and we will get to that in a minute. But first, if you click on Conspiracy in Canton up here, it's the podcast, second season of the podcast. This is the who's who. Let me make myself smaller. Let me make myself just a little bit... Make Lucy a little bit smaller. That way we can see everything. There we go. Lovely. Got it. So this... Oh, Kim, thank you. I finally listened to all 10 podcasts on this. Great job. Even boyfriend couldn't shut off. Yay. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. A labor of love. It's taken its toll on me. But it's good. Okay, so this is who's who. So this is based on... Now, okay, look. I know that there are more people than this. I know that there are more connections than this. But this is kind of the main who's who for us to go through. And I... wanted to do this based on things that have either been in court documents or said in hearings or whatever. So this is just based on things that are public record, publicly accessed that we know, and none of the other stuff, which is how I tried to do everything. All right, so you see Proctor up here. Every time I click on this, it, or point, whatever. Okay, that's okay. All right, so here's Proctor. Proctor obviously is the lead detective with Massachusetts State Police. Trooper Proctor. Berkowitz is... Oh, by the way, they said in the hearing today that Berkowitz may not be testifying or may not be able to make it to court because of health. That was the first I've heard of that. Bev said it was first. She's heard of it too. I say Bev like we're on a first name basis and we're besties, but Judge Beverly Cannoni said that it was the first time she'd heard of it too. I had not heard that before, that he may not be able to make it to court to testify because of that. So that'll be really interesting if he doesn't, especially because he's kind of a key part in this. So we'll see how that goes. So this is Berkowitz. He is the police chief. He's the one who saw the taillight pieces after the search as he was riding down the road in a moving car and saw taillight pieces, according to what we've heard in the hearings and in the court documents. All right, so Kevin Albert, he has a Proctor connection. Now, there's been different things. I think there's been speculation about the connection to him, but I don't like speculation. I like to go by just the things that that I can reference and show receipts on from actual stuff. So I'm not going to get into the speculation about the specifics, but there's a known connection. And then, of course, he is a co-worker. Because he is a Canton police officer, he is a co-worker of Berkowitz. Julie and Chris Albert. So they were there that night. We know that. They were at the Waterfall Bar and Grill with the whole group. So they were there in one of the statements. It said that they followed the Alberts to the house that night. They said that they didn't. So there are conflicting statements on that. From everything that we know, they were not listed as being at the house that night. It's just there's conflicting statements. But in one of the reports, it said that they followed them to the house that night. So this is the couple who has the text between the Proctors and the Alberts about Julie, wanting to buy a gift for Proctor when this is all over. They are also the parents of Colin Albert. Chris Albert is on the select board. There were the texts about Julie babysitting Trooper Proctor's kids. So that's the Proctor connection, according to all of the public records and the hearings. The texts and the gift thing came out in the hearing. I can't remember what that was, like late March hearing or the early April hearing. I can't remember. So that came out there. This is also, like I said, the parents of Colin Albert, who we heard in that April 12th hearing is listed as a potential for the third-party culprit defense. Brian Albert and Nicole Albert, of course, are the homeowners. John was found in their yard. He's Boston PD. So, oh gosh, goodness gracious. Every time I go over that. I have coworker on there because it's harder to, like, the connection is when I only have this much, but it's specified in all of my, like in the podcast and in all of like I said, this is the condensed version. The fuller version, which I think is on the episode guide, has the actual relation, but they're both, I gotta stop going over it. They're both officers, but Brian Albert was, I guess he's retired now, but he was Boston PD, and Berkowitz, who I think is also retired now, is Canton PD. So they're both law enforcement, but all the details of it are not on the condensed version. They're on the full version. Nicole Albert, of course, her sister is Jen McCabe. Jen McCabe's husband is Matt McCabe. Their Proctor connection is, they said in that hearing that the social media posts and the picture of the kids with Proctor, you remember defense held up the chalks with the pictures and, and when they were going through all of the connections and stuff, and they said that there was an obvious connection between them, and that, that was part of their reason saying that Proctor was conflicted in this. The prosecution, or Lally, when he addressed this, the reason that this has not been kind of put to rest, because if you ask people on Twitter, they're like, oh, it's been verified that, that's not the kids. But the problem is, when it was addressed in court, it wasn't verified that it wasn't the kids, because the way that Lally said it, this is what's kept this going. The way that Lally said it, it was like those children, and then he stopped and corrected himself, and he said, the child. So there's 3 children in that picture with Proctor, and the one in the front is, I think, like a niece of Proctor. And then the 2 in the back are the ones that they're saying are the McCabe children. And they said in the hearing that those are the 2 McCabe children. And so when Lally said that, he said the children, and then he stopped him and corrected himself and said the child is not one of the McCabe children. The child is related to Proctor. It's a relative of Proctor. But that's the part that kept this kind of going, because they said this is, we knew that part. We knew that the child in the front is connected to, or a relative of Proctor. It was the children in the back that they were saying are related to the McCabe. So the way that he did that, it didn't clear anything up. So that has been an ongoing investigation, or not investigation, ongoing debate about those kids. I did notice that on the witness list, Jen McCabe is on there, Matt McCabe is on there, and their daughter is on there. So hopefully that will be cleared up at trial. There was also Jen McCabe's brother. I think it's on my full one. Or is it Matt McCabe's brother? No, I think it's Jen McCabe's brother. He had sent some, some of his messages have been brought up in court as well. Like the anti-Bev text message about how, when he was asked if he had a connection to Judge Cannone, he said, "Oh, you mean anti-Bev?" Which is the reason everybody calls her anti-Bev now. So that was one from him. But also there's one where he is fussing at, I think it was at Turtle Boy, and said that he was mad at Turtle Boy for, posting a picture of his nieces. And so in relation to them, posting to Turtle Boy posting that picture. So that is part of what was used in court too when they were trying to get Judge Cannone to recuse herself and the anti-Bev stuff. So, such a mess. All right, what else? Okay, so we got Chloe. Chloe is the German Shepherd that they had for 7 years. Chloe's a good girl. However, through no fault of her own, just being a dog being a dog, she has, like how I have to, I feel like the need to defend the dog. The records show that there have been 2 prior bite incidents with Chloe. So there was, in the motions and stuff, or in the hearings we're going to watch, it shows that they had to file a motion to request the animal control records and all of that. So where Chloe had previous issues. They got rid of Chloe after having her for 7 years. And it was around the time that they were doing the grand jury stuff. So that is part of what has fueled the Chloe theories, about if those injuries came from Chloe. Now, I have said, and I know I get crap from this, but I have said that I don't necessarily believe the dog, theory 100%. I would have to hear, I would be open to hearing multiple experts on it. And I've heard multiple experts on it. I've heard some that do believe that, 100% that those arm injuries came from the dog. And then I've heard some that don't, based on just the pictures that we've seen. So based on just the pictures that we've seen, it's kind of hard to, in my opinion, it's kind of hard to make for me, because I'm not an expert on this, it's hard for me to make a full-on, yes, I am 100% sold on this, or no, I am not. So, or I should say, or no, this absolutely didn't happen. It's not enough for me to form a 100% opinion. So I am open to hearing what is said by their experts on this, because keep in mind, they said that one of the doctors has said that there's no way that it came from the dog, and then one of the doctors said that it absolutely came from a dog. So we'll have to see what the people who were actually able to, see more evidence than we did, what they say about it. So I am open to hearing about that. But because they got rid of the dog during grand jury stuff, and because there was previous history and all of that, obviously it's kind of like, it's going to raise more eyebrows. So I know, poor Chloe. She's a good girl. She didn't know. Brian Albert Jr. So Brian Albert Jr. is obviously the son of Brian Albert. He was having people over at the house that night at 34 Fairview for his birthday. Caitlin Albert is also one of the children of Brian and Nicole. Now, Caitlin and her boyfriend, Tristan, were at Waterfall Bar that night. Everything with that is a little bit unclear because the statements are like, you know, they say that they were there and then it never said when they left. And then all of a sudden, you know, grand jury snippets come out later and we find out that, because we heard that Tristan came and picked her up at 12:15, which is, you know, right when everybody else was getting there. But then we heard from grand jury testimony that that was quoted in one of the filings, I can't remember which one, that she was actually not picked up by him at 12:15. She got home with everybody about the same time, and they didn't leave till like 1:30. So it's yet another conflicting time and statement, and everything that goes along with all of these other conflicting time and statements. So, and also even the mention of her in the beginning is like, I think one of the very first statements that was taken said something about Nicole arrived to Waterfall with her daughter Tristan and Tristan's boyfriend and her sister, but obviously it was her sister-in-law, and Tristan is not her daughter. Tristan is her daughter's boyfriend. So it's just stuff like that. This is why I say that the investigation for me is so, and like all the reports and everything are just so flawed that it's hard to not see reasonable doubt with any of this. All right, Julie Nagel and Sarah Levinson. So Sarah is one of the ones who testified to grand jury too. We have just snippets of things that she said. Julie Nagel was there as well. She's the one who her brother came out or came in directly behind Karen and John when they were pulling up. Julie came out to the car apparently, and he, you know, her brother and the two other people that were with him had come out or driven out there to pick her up. She decided, or that's what the reports say, and she decided, you know, oh, you drove all the way out here, never mind, and they left. I'm really interested to hear more about that. And then of course Brian Higgins. We have heard a lot about Brian Higgins lately, which is funny because he kind of stayed under the radar for a long time until recently. So Brian Higgins is an ATF agent. He had office at Canton Police Department. So he was also a coworker of Berkowitz, and also apparently really close friends of Berkowitz. Yeah, that's the thing. Okay, this is something I keep saying this too. The reports were not signed by any of the witnesses. So all of these problems with them, we don't know if these problems are from the police or from them. And I say that over and over and over because I think that it's really important. Until we hear their testimony, we don't know. And other than like, you know, snippets here and there of the grand jury, you know, testimony, we don't know what came from them and what came from the police. So I think that that's really important because we can't just say, oh, they lied about, you know, Caitlin leaving at 12:15, because we don't know where that came from. So I think that that's really important to note, because until we get through all of the testimony, we won't know why. And it'll be interesting to hear, you know, who has to take blame for all of that. So we'll see. Kyle, thank you so much for the super chat. Thank you. Glad you're feeling better. Keep on keeping on. Yes. Sleep does some good. Does a lot of good. Thank you. I appreciate it. All right, what else we got? Carrie Roberts obviously is one of the ones who was with Karen when she went back to 34 Fairview and found John that morning. So that's kind of the main who's who. These are the ones who, I haven't updated this part yet, but that's okay. It should be, see, I said right here, why would he pick her up later if they were together? We've heard since this chart was made, you know, that they left it like 1:30 or whatever it is. So, okay, so Karina and Nicholas, we will hear about them. They are both on the witness list. They were at Waterfall that night. We don't hear a lot about them other than there's in the initial statements and stuff or in the initial report. Karina apparently said that Karen was complaining about having like no privacy because of John's mom and the kids and stuff, so having no like privacy and alone time or something like that with John. So there's a couple things like that, which I mean who I don't know if everybody, whoever complained about their mother-in-law and not having private time because their mother-in-law and kids, to me that's kind of a nothing burger, but they were, it was important to them. So we'll see if anything else comes of that. So these are the ones who were at the waterfall. And then these are the ones who went back to the house, or who were at the house. So all of this is 13jurorpodcast.com if you want to look at these and, help. I have more pictures and let's see what other picture. I don't even remember. It's been so long. So out of the let's see. I don't remember what all pictures I have on here. Oh, here's one of the fuller ones. It doesn't have everybody. The big one that has everybody is Sean McCabe. Okay, so it was Matt McCabe's brother. I couldn't remember. The one that has everybody looks like the biggest mess ever because there's so many people. Okay, and then episode 5 guide. So this has this breaks down all the times, which we're going to go over the timeline in just a minute. This has all the times. It has the drinks that she had, all of that. For some reason, Brian Higgins and Chris Albert were left out of all of the reports, all of the reports, the initial statements, and everything to do with anything about Waterfall or being at the house, originally. All the first stuff they were left out of for whatever reason. This has the times of even last text and all that. We're going to go over that in the interactive timeline in a minute. This was, okay, that original crash reconstruction thing that they did, that had where she drove forward 62 feet and then, reversed, or she drove forward and then reversed 62 feet, hitting him and then continued to reverse before pulling off and all of that. This is just kind of how that's, how it doesn't make sense. Lacey Ann, thank you so much for the super chat. Thank you. I appreciate it. Y'all are very generous. All right, let's see. Based on, this is another one of the charts, which we'll get into more of this when we go through the timeline in a minute. This is kind of based on that whole crash reconstruction thing from before, and then steps, all this is in more. So this is going to be this is the CCTV footage. Again, we're going to go through all this, but if you want to flip through just the pictures, it's on that part. If you want to look at the timeline, I have the interactive timeline right here. So this is what we're going to go through briefly. Now, if you look down here, I have the turquoise color and then the blue color. Those are the eras. So from the beginning. So it kind of helps break it up so you know what's what. So I'm going to go through this kind of quickly and then we're going to watch the motions. The timeline. All right. So the bar hopping begins. They are all, John O'Keefe is with, I need my old lady glasses. Hold on. Get my old lady glasses. Clean them up. Get my old lady glasses out. Oh. forgot how much I can't see until I do this. Okay, so bar hopping begins. So 7:30 to 8:45. So Nicole, Julie, Caitlin, and Tristan are at Waterfall Bar and Grill. John O'Keefe and his friend arrive at Michael Camerano. I don't know. I just know it from the documents. They arrive at McCarthy's. They're not, which the two bars are of course very close together. Now down here, if you go through this timeline, down here, hold on, I have to change to AirPods when I put my old lady glasses on. Okay. So the little section down here, I know you're not going to be able to read it on this. I know that. But when you go to the website, because it's written small, down here on every single picture, I have the conflicts on why these things are, like, what issues there are with these things happening. So, like, on this one, it's just the police reports are incorrect. They list Julie as Nicole's sister instead of sister-in-law, and they list her daughter as Tristan instead of Caitlin, leaving the boyfriend unnamed. So that down here is just all of the issues. All right, so bar hopping begins. All right, so this is what happens while the bar hopping begins. Nicole arrives at 7:30, and then at 7:37 is when John and Michael Camerano arrive at McCarthy's. The party grows because Jen McCabe and Matt McCabe and Nicholas and his wife Karina arrive to join everybody at Waterfall. Karen arrives to join John and Michael at CF McCarthy's. And then they have her drinks listed as well. Now, let me say, they have her drinks listed based on seeing her get these drinks from the bartender at the bar that they were at. It doesn't specify what it is. It says, you know, whatever she's drinking is clear liquid with lime and stuff like that. But it... Who am I now? I know, y'all never see my ears. I have ears. They're just usually hidden. The drinks that are listed, it specifies, you know, like that she got a clear liquid in a shot glass and poured it into her drink and all that. So when we see all of that stuff come out, you know, we'll see. People have asked me, like, okay, well, was she drinking all of those, or did she hand them to other people? They didn't specify. All they said is that she got this glass and she got that glass, and, you know, she was handed this and poured it into her drink or whatever. So that will all be part of what we'll see. It does not specify her handing anything to anybody else. All right, so at 8:45, Julie texts John. It says, come to Waterfall and join them. Karen, it's 8:51 when Karen... Oh, that went out of order, didn't it? Oh, no, it didn't. This is the main one. And then I'm getting confused about my own thing. This is the main one, the party grows. So everything that happens under here, and then it breaks it down. So Julie texts John. It's like a category and then subcategory with the times. And then Karen joins at 8:51. And then the McCabe's, the time that the McCabe's arrive. And then Karina arrives. Okay, next section. Parties continue. So they stay there for a while. Brian Albert arrives at Waterfall after returning from New York City. According to his statement, he arrived with wife Nicole. Okay, that's not true or accurate or right, so don't know where that came from. He did not arrive with Nicole. Nicole was already there, and her statement said that she arrived at 7:30. And keep in mind, like in all of these statements, there's no mention of Higgins arriving, but we believe that Higgins arrived with Brian Albert because they had been in New York City at a funeral. So 10:40, Karen and John leave. CCTV shows Karen and John leaving CF McCarthy's at 10:40. And they head to Waterfall. Karen is shown on CCTV with a drink in her right hand per the documents. It says that you can see her on camera. Julie texts John at 10:41. That's the last text that she sends him. So the next section is everything that's going on at Waterfall Bar and Grill. So Karen and John enter together at 10:54. The statements say that Julie got a migraine soon after John and Karen's arrival and left. This part was really interesting for me because if she's texting him this whole night saying, you know, come over here, come join us, whatever, and then as soon as they get there, then she gets a headache and leaves. I have gotten headaches too before, but I don't know. It was just it says soon after they got there. I just don't know how soon, because she had just texted him like 10 minutes before that. So it seems weird to leave. And I'm not looking into it like, oh, she's the murderer. That's not what I'm saying. Lord, how many people are going to clip, you know, stuff and run with it like they do. But I don't know. I just think it's weird. Chris Albert, there is no mention in any of the statements about when he arrived, and there was no mention about him leaving. We didn't find out anything about that until grand jury minutes came out way later, which, shocker, one more issue with the investigation. So around midnight, everybody's getting ready to leave for Brian and Nicole's house. We now know that Brian Higgins, even though he was left out of reports, we now know that he went before them, and apparently he has the snow plow on his Jeep, and it said that he was going to go clear space for them, even though the snow had just started falling. So I don't think that really makes sense, but we'll see if they explain it. If there's nothing to plow because the snow had just started, then I don't really know what he was apparently going to plow, but you know, maybe they'll clear that up. But he left, even though he's left out on all these reports, he left, and then we know that when he left, he texted Karen and said something about which is interesting. Let's see. And then everybody else is going back to the house. There are discrepancies on, you know, who invited them. Most everything says that, you know, that Jen McCabe invited John and Karen back to the house, but Karen says she never heard it. In one of her statements, or one of the statements that's listed for her, I should say, because none of them are signed. In one of the statements that's attributed to Jen McCabe, it said that Brian Albert invited everybody back. So it's another one of those things that because they didn't have any of this recorded or didn't have any of their statements signed, we don't know who messed up what. So it was Brian Jr.'s birthday, so they go back for that. Now, Sergeant Lank's report said that Brian and Nicole said that John had been welcomed to the home, but never arrived. Chris Albert said that he left in the opposite direction, but didn't specify where he went when he was leaving, which is another thing that didn't come out until later. Buchanan's report said that Chris and Julie followed everybody to Brian Albert's home after leaving Waterfall. So nothing adds up on this. That's why I say the investigation and the reports and everything are so bad that it's like you have to pick one of their stories and go with it. So I'm really excited to hear all the witnesses testify so that we know what actually happened and which of these statements is the right one. We'll see. So CCTV shows Karen. Okay, and this is also interesting. So CCTV shows Karen leaving Waterfall with two females, and moments later, John is seen walking out with a glass in his right hand. The video shows that snow had just started falling. So he leaves with this glass in his right hand, which is going to be one of the big things that they talk about, because he, when he was found, he had broken glass. They said broken cocktail glass. Well, first it was called broken drinking glass, I think, and then it was broken cocktail glass. So the video that has him leaving with that, they will we'll see that in court. They'll play all of that. But also, it says that she leaves with 2 females, and like, I think it's like 1 minute later, it's like 12:10 she leaves, and then 1 minute later he leaves. But the statements, a couple of statements said that Karen and John walked out together. So we'll see who the 2 females are. All right, and then driving. So this is a little bit hard to see. Let's see if we can go to, here we go. This is a little bit hard to see. So this just kind of has some of their communications. When they leave Waterfall, the route that they can go is like kind of up here and over. I mean, they could go other ways, but it doesn't make as much sense. This way and this way are the 2. It's like this way, or this way are the ways that they can go. So it shows that they went this way, though, because they passed by this camera. There's some communication after they leave that they, John and Jen McCabe are communicating about where to go. When they get up there, they get lost. So let's get to that. John and Jen talk. Okay, so 12:15 is when the original statement that Caitlin leaves, which we now know is not true. Jen McCabe, according to her phone, arrives at 12:18. At 12:20, the CCTV footage shows that Karen's SUV is at various spots along the route, and John's phone pinged in the neighborhood for the first time at 12:19. Not sure where to go. John enters the address into Waze at 12:20 a.m. Okay, so the controversial and conflicting data. So I did a whole separate timeline for that one just because these are kind of the crucial minutes. But this is the part that everybody is, that they're really going to have to pay attention to in the trial. Okay, so the conflicting data. So there's 80 steps and 3 flights of stairs that are shown on Apple Health data. The Apple Health data is, I put a link to the study on here too. I feel like I'm going to sneeze. But the Apple Health data, it says that there is a very high accuracy with the actual like number of steps, but it is not accurate. I think it was in within 2% of the averaged error for the type of cell phone that he was using, or the type of cell phone that he had. Oh gosh. Sorry. I went from not having like rest of my voice and not talking to all of a sudden talking a lot. It's killing my throat. But the distance traveled and like how far you're moving, the distance is not, and like where you're at, like the location for it is not as accurate. Like distance, it's with like a 30 to 40% variation. So I think that that's important, and you know that's based on the studies that I found, and I pulled in the episode that went over this. I pulled previous testimony from other trials. I think the trial I pulled was like the Murdoch trial, where he's explaining the accuracy of all this, and because I wanted to read my own study, but I also wanted to pull it from a previous trial to hear an expert explaining it. And so they're saying that it's you know, accurate, but as far as the distance traveled or the location of where you're traveling, that part's not as accurate. So, so everybody disagrees on this. The route that they took, there are pings that are along this route. So they missed the road here. They come up, they come around. They start to come back to Fairview. They missed the road here, came here, ended up reversing, doing reverse direction, coming back this way, and then turning on Fairview. So all of these marks, like all of these points, are the plotted points, the manually plotted points that were done by Trooper Proctor and Trooper Guarino about the location. And that's something that I know that they're going to talk a lot about. This is going to be one of the biggest arguments on this conflicting data. This is going to be one of the biggest arguments that they have in this whole case, because they have the the plotted points that they did. Goodness, throat. The plotted points that they did were done through an app on his phone. So it's not one of those things where it's like a printout that's coming directly from the phone company or from, that the locations that they pulled it from the cache in the phone and then manually plotted them through this app. And that's where these came from. So we'll hear them. I'm curious to hear them explain more of this. So this just goes through some of the plotted points. This is when they put it in reverse. And then it shows them, according to the forensics affidavit of Richard Green, John O'Keefe arrived at 34 Fairview around 12:24. Which, of course, we know contradicts the Apple Health data times. But, like they said, the times and the distance are not as accurate on the Apple Health. Times and distant are not accurate. That's number of steps, they said, is what's generally very accurate. Ryan Nagel, Richie, and Heather are present from 12:24 to 12:29. So this is important because we're going to hear from them on the witness list. When John and Karen turned onto Fairview Road, Ryan Nagel and Richie and Heather. What is that? Oh, it's the ice cream boat. I was like, I hear like music, but it's the ice cream boat. Anyway, sorry. It's like squirrel. They pulled in directly behind them, and that's important because they were behind them for that period of time that they were there. When he pulled off, according to the statement, it says that there was no damage to the car that he saw. When he looked in the car, he did not see anybody in the car with Karen. The interior light was on, and so he said that he could see in, but he didn't see anybody there with her, just her, like at a 10 and 2 position, looking forward. Yeah, it's an ice cream boat. It's like a little pontoon that pulls up and sells ice cream. It's like our version of an ice cream truck, but it pulls up. It's a pontoon, and it'll pull up and sell ice cream to whoever out there. It's kind of cool. I wish they had a margarita boat. Then I'd be out there all the time. I'll have to get a picture of it when I can. You've never seen an ice cream boat? Hold on. I think I have a picture on Facebook. Oh, dang, I'm signed out. Ice cream boat. There was one of them that capsized last year. It's really sad. There it is. It's an ice cream boat. Yeah, can you go back to see where it's closer? Yeah. Here it is. It's our ice cream boat. Some people have ice cream trucks. We have ice cream boats. All right. It is cool. All right. So, Ryan, Richie, and Heather pull in behind them. So we're going to hear from them. They said that when he pulled off, like I said, he didn't see anybody in there. He didn't see any damage to the car. The interior light was on. So we'll see what he has to say. Obviously, that time frame that they said in the original one that they had, where that said that she hit him at 12:25, he would have still been there at 12:25, and didn't see it happen. So that kind of blew that whole theory. So we'll see what all he says about that. I'll be interested to hear that testimony. So she parks at the flagpole. So this is another thing too. I think in one of her statements, she said that she, y'all have never seen those ever? Do you not have them at other beaches? I love them. I think they're so cool. Unmedicated brandy. Okay, focus. All right, so in one of her statements, it says that she, I think it said she dropped John off, and then he went toward the house, and so she pulled up a little bit. All of the statements do say that she, parked, in one spot and then moved forward. Everything that we know, backs that up. So we do know that she was parked at one point and then moved forward. But the final location where it shows that she was for a little while was right around the flagpole area, which is where John was found. One of the statements from Jen McCabe said that she parked by or that's attributed to Jim McCabe, I should say, says that she parked by the driveway, but nothing. I mean, I think that was one of them, and the rest of them, I think one of them said parked directly in front of the house, but for the most part, most of what we've seen supports, parking kind of in front of the house and then moving forward a little bit. Let's see. So the impact per that Commonwealth theory, this is for that, and of course, this is not accurate. Or not possible based on what we know. That Ryan, Richie, and Heather were present during this time. This is when they said the time of impact was, which it couldn't have been, because obviously, if they were there during this time, she couldn't have hit him with them parked right behind her. There's no way that could have happened. And then there's the 8-second call from Jen McCabe that shows as answered. We'll see. I mean, if it is, there's been a lot of argument over this too. If it is answered, then we should be able to see that. If it's a voicemail for 8 seconds, then it'll be on a voicemail log. But this one says answered. And then there's 36 steps at that same time that this text comes in about telling him to, pull up behind me. There's 36 steps recorded on his phone at that time. So, obviously, with him having an answered phone call and steps at that time, this wouldn't be possible. Also, the latest that Karen could have left, like the absolute latest that she could have left to get back to the house at that 12:41 would have been about the 12:35 time. So all of that kind of breaks down all of that all at once. These are the texts to John. So Jen McCabe is kind of blowing up John right here, texting him, saying, are you here? There's the 8-second call, pull up behind me. And these show the steps too. Now, Jen McCabe has two different versions of steps being recorded. One is from her phone and one is from her watch. So that's why there's two different things going on there. So some of them, like where she has on, there's no steps being recorded on her phone at certain times, but it's recorded on her watch, so maybe her phone was set down or whatever. But you can see that she's kind of like blowing him up right here. Now, to me, I've heard multiple theories on this, and I don't want to speculate too much. I've heard that, she's blowing him up, like looking for his phone. But to me, that's not what this says. To me, this says that, like, you know, if their third party culpability defense thing is, you know, what they're going with, to me, this shows that she, you know, if something else happened to him that she doesn't know, because she's trying to, you know, trying to text him and call him. So everybody can have their different interpretations of that, but that's mine. Let's see. She calls him at 12:29. She texts him at 12:31 to pull up behind me. So this was something interesting too. So the data point shows that Karen and John are parked down here by the flagpole at this time, but she says, according to, I mean, maybe it's the police saying it, like I said, not signed. I feel like I have to say that every single time, because otherwise people will clip one small part out of context of what I'm saying. But according to one of these statements, it says that she said that she saw Karen and John parked by the driveway when she texted him to pull behind her car. And that was at 12:31. But they weren't by the driveway. So it's an inconsistency. John's final steps were 12:31 to 12:32. There were 36 steps recorded. So the latest that, okay, so let's look at this. So these are the things that support each theory. So the things that support the defense are in the red. So the health data, they say, suggests that John entered the home because of the steps and the flights of stairs and all that. So that's part of the defense. The witnesses were parked right behind Karen and did not see her hit John at the time of impact. He also, the witness behind Ryan, Ryan did not see anyone in the car with Karen when he left, and no damage to her car. There was the 8-second call after the time of impact. Jen McCabe's statements, according to the police, contradict the data point from report from the troopers. There were 36 steps recorded. Jen and Matt McCabe both said that they watched the SUV drive away. That's going to be a big part of this, I think, because both of them in statements said that they watched the SUV drive away. So if they watched her drive away, I think that's going to be, but then, I mean, there is one statement where it says that Jen McCabe, saw the car and then she did something else or was doing something else, and then she looked out again, the car was gone. But both of their statements said that they watched her drive away. So, but then, of course, one of Matt McCabe's statements also says he looked out there and saw tire tracks where it looked like she did a 3-point turn, but we know that, but he didn't see a body, he just saw tire tracks. I don't know. So that's what I'm saying. All this stuff is a mess, y'all. And then, of course, none of the 5 people who left, which we now know is more, since this has been done, we now know that that's more, witnessed John lying in the yard, and neither did the snowplow driver, Lucky. Things that support the Commonwealth. The troopers' data report suggests that there was no entrance to the home. Those plotted points they did on the cell phone say that he did not enter the home. The data points on the troopers' report show that there was no movement after 12:25, which of course is contradicted by the other one, so we'll see how they go into all that. And all family members deny that John entered the home, or denied seeing him enter the home. And then, despite witness statements from Jen McCabe, no data points on the troopers' report by the driveway. So those are all the things that go toward that. I think that's one of the parts that's going to be some of the most interesting to hear both sides on this, because it's not that often that we have cell phone data from two separate two separate sources that contradict each other. So we'll have to see, have to see what they say about it and what we believe and what makes the most sense. All right, so the library footage that's missing. So this is a big part of what we're going to have to hear too. The library footage is missing. Now, I know that the hearing where Lally addresses this, he says that, everything that was given to them that he gave to the defense, that they didn't remove anything. I think somebody was saying on Twitter that the library footage is motion activated. That's like kind of the response for everything. Everything's motion activated. But it's for those 2 minutes that the car would have been going by there. Now, I talked about this in the podcast episode, but there are 3 different routes that she could have taken. 2 of the 3, which are the closest, like the easiest routes, 2 of the 3 would go by the library, and she would be in those. If she did take the 3rd route, then she wouldn't have gone by the library for that one. I'm sure we'll have phone data and stuff like that, so we can see what route she took and see if that answers that question. Jen texts John at 12:40. Karen arrives at John's at 12:41. This came from a hearing in May of last year where the David Unetti says that there's a voicemail that was provided in Discovery where you can hear Karen, you can hear the garage door open, you can hear her go into the house and all that, and he says that that's at 12:41. So that's how they know that she was there at that time. This is Jen still texting and calling John. Jen texts John and then sees Karen leave at 12:45. Oops. Jen calls John 3 times. Okay, so Nicole Albert's statement said that all people were gone by 1 a.m., which we now know is not true. Nobody was gone by 1 a.m. Brian Higgins is said to have left at 1:30 to go to Canton Police Department to do administrative work, but it was originally said that he went to Canton Police Department to do administrative work, but now he went to move his car. So he also said later that he was in bed asleep by 2:22 when the call from Brian Albert came, and then he returned the call. That was the whole butt dial thing. It really is a case of missing videos, isn't it? This is like the 3rd big. We got the missing ring videos. We've got the missing library timestamp, and we got the missing Sallyport timestamp. So Jen and Matt McCabe go home. Now there were some questions about this. There was some misinformation going around about this too. They left at 1:47. So they took Julie Nagel home, and then they took Sarah Levinson home. Sarah Levinson lives like a hop, skip, and a jump from John's house. So there was something going around at one point that they went to John's house, but they didn't go to John's house. They went to Sarah Levinson's house. She lives like right here. And then went to their home at 2:12 a.m. All right, so Lucky leaves the yard at 2:15 a.m. Brian Higgins and Brian Albert, like the whole butt dial situation, happens at 2:22 a.m. Jen is showing on her phone. Her data shows that she unlocked her phone at 2:23, sent a text at 2:25, or sent 2 texts at 2:25, kind of 45 seconds apart, and then deleted 2 screenshots at 2:26, and then the infamous "How Long to Die in Cold" search. And I put the link for the video for that right there. The experts, I'm excited to see what their Celebrite expert says, because everybody that I've talked to who doesn't know anything about this case, zero about this case, has told me that it's not, and that includes the programmer, the coder guy from Apple, and I talked to the one Celebrite dude kind of briefly, but multiple programmers, and then the coder and the Celebrite guy. Everybody that I talked to who knows nothing about this case has told me that there would not be a 2:27 a.m. timestamp for a 6:24 a.m. search. And one of them also said that one, he said he can't give an exact whatever, without seeing the full thing of her raw data and all that. But he said based on that table that is in the paperwork where it says that 6:24 a.m. search was done as a from recent history searches or whatever. He said that would be because it was done before, like at the 2:27. So I don't know. Everybody that knows nothing about this case has told me that 2:27 a.m. time search doesn't necessarily mean 2:27, but it couldn't mean 6:24. That it would have had to have been within a very narrow time frame around 2:27. So I will be really interested to hear how they explain it, because people who are very involved in the case, like everybody's all of a sudden a Celebrite expert, and people say their opinions as if it's fact, or say what they want to believe as if it's fact. So I'll be curious to hear how they explain that. Which is exactly the sole reason that I asked somebody, well, multiple people, who don't know anything about the case, because they don't have one side that they want to, to be right. Let's see. So the Ford Edge thing, the Ford Edge was spotted by Lucky the snowplow driver, who said that, now keep in mind Lucky is colorblind, so he doesn't know the color of it, but he saw the Ford Edge. He said that it was not accumulating snow on the top. He said that it was parked right where they found John's body. He said it was not Brian Albert's Ford Edge. But here's why I think this is important. I think a lot of people have taken this as, it absolutely means that, because I know a lot of the Alberts drive Ford Edges. But to me, because again, I'm not, going one way or the other, as far as like everybody in this to me is innocent unless proven guilty. So I'm not spreading who I think did what. To me, the biggest part of this is not proving that, and Albert was probably parked right there because there was a Ford Edge. To me, it's that if there was a Ford Edge, if there was a car, I don't care if it was a, Lamborghini, whatever's parked right there at that time, if there was somebody parked right there at that time, that, and they don't see a body, they don't report a body, they don't, whatever. To me, that's reasonable doubt. I think that a lot of people take some of that, take the fact that it's a Ford Edge and focus a lot on that. But to me, that part might work with, third-party culpability defense if that's what they end up bringing up. But to me, the big part of that is that there was anybody who was parked there who had not been parked there for a long time, because he said the car was not accumulating snow. somebody was parked there and did not see a body. And to me, that's the part that I think, Lucy's snoring. To me, that's the part that I think is important. Because if there was somebody parked there and there's a body right there. And he said at that time it had not started snowing hard yet. So, I don't know. To me, that would be reasonable doubt. Jen's health data. This is something that they've talked a lot about. Jen's health data. So we have that, she was taking steps and all that. Now, one of the things that they said in the in one of the hearings is that she was up pacing all night. So I kind of charted. She's snoring so loud. I kind of charted some of that out to see, and there were steps, there was movement, but there are 2 periods of time where she's not recording steps on either of her devices. One of them is for an hour and 17 minutes. And then about an hour before Karen calls, there's some steps recorded. And then after those steps are recorded, it's an hour and 4 minutes later that Karen calls, and then there's, movement again. But so there's 2 periods of time, each for just over an hour, where she's not moving. Or not recording steps, I should say. Jen calls Julie at 4:55. This is one of those things that has been kind of debated a lot about the meaning behind the statement. Again, because the statements are all so messed up. The phone call. Okay, so the statement that Julie said that she was asleep when the phone woke her up, and it was Jen's missed call, and that's how she found out about John dying. Of course, this was an hour before he was found. So in later court documents, we find out that she testified to the grand jury and gave a different story. So this kind of goes back to what I was saying about how all of these police statements are so messed up and, messy and nonsensical. So until we actually hear what they're saying, we don't know what the actual story is. So we'll see, But she told the grand jury that she woke up at 5:30 a.m., saw the missed call from Jen at 4:55, but she didn't think anything bad had happened. So she said that she got up, changed clothes, and went to Brian Albert's to drop off a gift for her nephew's birthday. So in this version of the story, she says that she learned about John's death when she arrived to the Albert home. Which, of course, is different than what was in the reports. Jen calls John at 4:59. Karen calls Carrie. According to troopers Matthew Dunn and David Dicitio, I don't know how to say it. That's the approximate time that Carrie gets a call from Karen stating that John didn't come home. It was snowing. She was worried. However, according to Proctor's phone interview on February 1st, he said that Carrie answered the phone to hear Karen state that John's dead. Carrie, I wonder if he's dead. It's snowing. He got hit by a plow. So this is something that I noticed too, because you will hear a lot of talk about how, Carrie said that she was, that Karen called and said on the phone that he's dead. And according to Proctor's interview, a few days after that initial interview, let me reverse that. According to the first interview that she did with 2 troopers, she doesn't say anything. They don't say anything about that. But a few days later, Trooper Proctor interviews her over the phone, and in that statement is the one that it says that. Which, if it ends up being, this is like a, Trooper Proctor is dirty and trying to set things up, that's something that would be used for the defense. I'm sure that they have already noticed that as well. Jen calls John at 5:04. Okay, so at 5:07 is when the car backs up out of the garage and hits John's car. I have seen some people say that they don't think that that it hit. I didn't think it did until I zoomed in, because when you zoom in, you can see that the tire moves. I had to watch the tire to see it move, but you can see it. Most people say you can see it. Some people say you can't. Even all the experts that I've seen on the panels and stuff, like from both sides, have said you can see it move. You can tell that she hit it, but potentially not hard enough to break the light or whatever. So that debate will still rage on, I'm sure, and come up in trial. But this is how the defense says that they believe that Karen's taillight was busted. Another call from Jen to John, another call from Jen to John, another call from Jen to John, another call from Jen to John. All these calls. So this is as far as I've got, as far as I went in the in this timeline. My full timeline has everything in here. Let me get to it real quick. But I haven't put it on the interactive one yet because there's only 24 hours in a day, unfortunately. But let's pull it up. Let's pull it up. Let's pull it up. Okay, so the calls, let me exit out of this so we're not, there we go. Exit out of some of this. Exit. Okay. There are videos. Okay, so I thought I had this in a thing too. I might, actually, I'm pretty sure I do. Let me see if I can find, I don't have it on the website timeline, but I'm pretty sure I have a chart. Y'all know I got a chart for everything. I got a chart for everything. Is Brandy leaning towards guilty? No. I am open. I am leaning towards there's obvious reasonable doubt at this point, so I don't think that there's any way that I gotta remember which one I had this in. I don't think that there's any way that to look at this and see guilt at this point. I think that there's reasonable doubt in it. And I don't think that until everything comes out at trial that anybody would really be able to, in my opinion, say, oh, it's not on that one. Maybe it's on this one. Say that she's guilty, especially beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, look, if stuff comes out at trial and, fills in these holes and answers these questions, then that's fine. But, at this point, there's just not enough, definitely not enough to convict. Okay, here we go. Yes, I knew I had it. There we go. I knew I had it. Okay. This will help me explain this. It makes things so much easier to have a chart. All right. Look at Lucy. Bad dog. Okay. So looking at the timeline, if where is it? Okay, so this is John's house, right? 34 Fairview is right here. Jim McCabe's house is right here. This is John's. Here's Waterfall Bar and Grill down here. Here's Canton Library right here. So here's what we know from the data. She pulls out of John's house. You can see her at 5:08 leaving the garage door. She travels out of the driveway onto Meadows Avenue and then turns left onto Pleasant Street. There are videos missing from the ring footage, so we don't have videos of her arriving home. Which is, I mean, her arriving home, you know, the way that she pulls out of the garage because she's backing out, with her pulling in, you wouldn't have seen the taillight anyway, so I don't know what, you know, I know some people say that she's the one who deleted it because John's niece said that she may have had access to it through the home computer. We know that the police had access to it because they accessed the ring footage through John's phone. That's in court documents. So we know for a fact they had access to it. She may have had access to it through the home computer. So the two sides argue a lot about that. The ring video that shows her leaving, though, is like 5:08. So it shows that she travels down through this way. She goes down to Waterfall. It shows her going down Sherman, left onto Washington in the direction of Waterfall at 5:11 a.m. And she's seen on, we'll see all this in trial. It's got the video clips that we're supposed to see during all of this. The thing that stands out to me about this is, and I mentioned this in the podcast too, if she were like at home, you know, pissed off knowing that she had just murdered her boyfriend, she wouldn't have gone to Waterfall looking for him. So to me, that's something that stands out, because if I'm a juror, I'm not going to believe that she is driving there looking for him. Like, that's the first place that she goes. You know, when she wakes up panicking and screaming and stuff. And if that's the first place she goes, then to me that says she doesn't, you know, she's not sitting at home like, yeah, I just killed him, you know, screw him for that fight we got into in Aruba or whatever. So that's something that stood out to me. If that's the first place she goes, it shows that she doesn't know where he's at. That's my opinion. Let's see. So then she goes away from Waterfall. So the first place she goes is Waterfall. Then she goes away from Waterfall. It says that she comes over to Sherman, continues on Washington towards Temple Beth Abraham. They have, in Discovery, there are videos that are collected from this place right here, this place right here. There's another little one right here. So we're going to see some of that. And because there's video collected right here, I don't know. It doesn't say if she's in any of that video. None of that is listed. If this is the route she took home, when they said that the library video didn't see her or didn't have those minutes or whatever, if she came, you know, this way, and instead of coming like this or like this, which are the two quickest routes, if she came down here and then back up here and then down here, then she wouldn't have passed the Canton Library. That's the only of the three routes that she could have taken that would not have taken her by there. They did collect video from here. So it doesn't say that if they collected video to show that she didn't pass by there, or if they collected video and it shows that she did pass by there. All we know is that they collected the video. and it doesn't say when or anything else. All right, so after she goes here to Waterfall, then she comes up here. She's seen at 5:18, turning, it says going toward Dedham and Washington intersection, so she would have gone this way. Keep in mind this is the way that she came to when they came up here and got lost. So she doesn't really know, and they were saying that she was drunk and stuff, so we know that she doesn't really know her way around here. But this is, I'm pointing on this screen and just now realized that you can't see what I'm pointing to because I was pointing on the wrong screen. Only I can see my cursor on this screen. But anyway, she turns this way. So this is a 5:18. Okay, so then we know that she ends up getting to Jen McCabe's house. So this is one of the questions. We know that she gets to Jen McCabe's house. If the camera catches her here at 5:18 by front of Temple Beth Abraham toward the intersection of Washington and Dedham Street, which is right here. That's at 5:18. So Karen calls Jen McCabe right after that. And they talk for 24 seconds. And then Jen calls Karen at 5:26. And that lasts for 95 seconds. Jen said that Karen showed up at her house around 5:30, and she went outside and she drove Karen's car to John's. So my question is, if Jen called Karen and they talked for those 95 seconds, that means that they would have gotten off the phone like 27, like 5:27 is when they would have gotten off the phone. So she would have arrived sometime, you would think, between like 5:27 and then when they left, which was within a couple minutes after that, right? So that's like 9 minutes. That's been one of the questions too. That's a 9-minute gap from being seen right here to get to Jen McCabe's house. It's without snow conditions. It's a 4-minute drive. We know that she didn't know where she was going, like, for the most part in this area, because she had gotten lost the night before. We don't really know how, as far as 34 Fairview goes, we don't know how familiar she is with getting to the McCabe's house. We don't know, any of that stuff. But that is one of those things that I've heard people say, oh, she went back to 34 Fairview. If she did, then this would have been the time that she would have been able to do it. That's one of those things, though, that they'll have, look at Lucy, they'll have phone data for her. So that will hopefully answer that question so that there's no more speculation about what happened. I think 5:39 is when... Yeah, 5:39 is when Jen's phone shows that they left her house. So that means that sometime in that 10-minute period is when she would have had to have gotten there. So statements are also conflicting about Carrie. Hold on. Look at her. Is she the cutest dang dog? So the PCA said that Karen was distraught. She drove to Jen's house. Karen told Jen that she last remembered seeing John at Waterfall. And the PCA says that Jen told her, like, no, you and John left the bar together. The interview with Carrie that was done, this is kind of conflicting on this, so I'll be glad to hear this cleared up. But it said that Carrie met Karen at Jen McCabe's house, and followed them to John's, but Jen McCabe said that Carrie met her and Karen at John's house. So I will be glad for them to clear that up so that I can clear up my timeline. But they apparently left here to go back to John's at 5:39. And Carrie, we do know that Carrie followed behind in the SUV. But I don't know if... it's just not clear if Carrie met them there or, you know, just came and didn't get out of the car or whatever. Why it's worded kind of funky. So Jen drove Karen's SUV from her house back to John's because Karen was too hysterical to drive. Carrie followed them. Carrie said that it was whiteout conditions, I think. I think she's the one who said that. The PCA says that while they were on the way, Jen said that Karen said, "Could I have hit him? Did I hit him?" And that's from the January 29th interview report. And they put that in the statement of case and everything too. And the PCA says that Karen told her about a cracked tail light on the vehicle, and when they got to John's, they looked at it. They went inside John's. They got there about 5:45. They apparently went inside to look and see, make sure he wasn't there. They looked at the broken tail light apparently while they were there, and observed the report says broken / cracked right tail light. What else? Let's see. I'm trying to make sure I get all the statements on here. Once at John's, Karen and Jen looked at cracked tail light on this one. And then one of them says broken. The wording changes as the statements go. All right, so Jen said that they looked in John's house to make sure that he wasn't there, and then they decided to go look for him in Carrie's car. So they take Carrie's car and go look for him. Karen was in the back. Carrie drove, and Jen McCabe sat in the front passenger seat. Let's see. Carrie described the weather as whiteout conditions. Jen said that it was snowing heavily, creating poor visibility. They followed her location data from Waterfall. Jen calls Tom Betty at 5:57 a.m. The first place that they went when they left there was apparently 34 Fairview. There are time discrepancies that I'm not going to get into too much because, look, everything in this is time discrepancy. But just based on what we know, it was right at 6 o'clock when they got there. Like 6:04, I think, is when they said that, or 6:03:47 is when the 911 call was made, which was a 3-minute and 32-second call. So when they said they got there, one of the things that they said was that as they were approaching, the two in the front, Jen McCabe and Carrie, did not see John in the yard, but they said that Karen did. Karen spotted him first and told them, there he is, pull over the car. And she got out, ran over, laid on top of him to try to warm him up, tried to give him mouth-to-mouth CPR, and she had blood on her. I'm interested to see, because there's so much argument about the 227 versus the 624 search. I'm curious to see because at 623 and 624, That's about the time that Sergeant Lank arrived. He arrived at 6:24 and said that he put Karen in the cruiser. He arrived while Good asked Karen questions in the cruiser. So at the time that that the Google searches happened in the 6:23, 6:24 time, that was when they were apparently sitting in the police car. If there's dash cam for that, would they have audio? Do the dash cams have audio? Because if Sergeant Lank says that his report says that he arrived at 6:24 while Sergeant Good had Karen in the cruiser. So, and if we know that those searches happened at 6:23 and 6:24, that would mean that they would have been in the car when Jen McCabe said that that she Googled that because Karen told her to. So if she told her to, then it would be on dash cam. Let me see. I've been reading from my stuff and I've missed some of y'all's comments. Let me see some of y'all's comments. Hello, welcome, welcome. Lucy's snoring so loud. Okay, Maryland, Mississippi says, if she hit him and didn't realize it, why wouldn't it be ruled an accident? What caused police to charge her with murder? So, they will more than likely include the lesser charges, because I think one of them, I think they have in the indictment, I'll have to go back and look at it, but I think they include the vehicular manslaughter. She's snoring so loud. So the jury will generally get the option to decide if they think it's murder or an accident or whatever. They will more than likely have the option to convict of a lesser charge if they think that, yeah, she probably did it. But okay, so let's say that the jury looks at it like the same way that I did about she wouldn't have gone looking for him at Waterfall if she knew that, she had murdered him and left him there. So if they think, if the evidence comes out and they think, oh, well, she probably hit him, but she went to look for him, so she was probably just blackout drunk and doesn't remember, then they could convict of a lesser charge, which, vehicular manslaughter or whatever, whatever it falls in with the jury instructions on how they do it. But it got changed in June to the second-degree murder as opposed to the manslaughter charge. So they believe that they have enough evidence based on what they have, so we'll have to see what comes out. I'll be interested to see. DG said, I'm sorry, but it is what it is. It's definitely a cover-up. Got rid of their dog. That's a part of the family. Sold the house, destroyed the phone. Destroying evidence. You don't just do those things. I think that that's been one of the hardest things for a lot of people to, look. You can only kind of explain away so many things usually. And, how many times we heard in cases, like in trial and stuff like that, there's only so many coincidences, so I think that that's one of the hardest things. It's not just the evidence, the stuff like that. If this had been a clean investigation and a, you know, everything done by the book and all of these things, if all of that had been done properly and well and without question, then it might be easier for a lot of people to accept that some things are going to be coincidences. I think that having all of those investigation issues on top of all of those things, that is what's causing so many questions. You know, and honestly, in distrust, like, and this is not the only case. Like, I've had so many locals, you know, my inbox has been flooded, like, you know, wanting me to cover this case or that case or different, you know, things that have happened, and sending me different articles and different, you know, names and stuff to look into. Like, there's a lot of distrust in this area with the police, and they did vote in November to do the police audit. The town held a special meeting and voted to do a police audit. So, you know, hopefully all of this will at least bring about some way to make some changes in the future so that there aren't issues like this. And there's not so much distrust with the police in the area. Because it's not all of them. You know, it's like, that's the problem with stuff like that, though, that happens. It's like when there's a few questionable people or when there's a few bad eggs, it causes a distrust for the whole thing, you know? Doesn't reasonable doubt mean you're leaning toward not guilty? Well, reasonable doubt is not guilty. But I'm saying, as far as, like, if she's, like, if you're, so that's two different questions, kind of, like, when people ask me this. Right now, if I were to, you know, be a juror and have to say right now guilty or not guilty, I would 100% say not guilty because there's reasonable doubt. When it comes to, you know, what do I think that the evidence is going to show if she's guilty or innocent? Like, is she the one who's actually responsible for it? That's what I'm saying. I'm open for that. Like, I'm open to see what the evidence supports. But as far as looking at it right now, guilty or not guilty, reasonable doubt means not guilty. If you have questions, then that's not guilty. Beyond a reasonable doubt is, like, essentially being certain. And there's no way that I can look at any of this and be like, yeah, I'm essentially certain. That destroy the phone thing is so strange. Yeah. So many things are. What made Karen see John isn't home and freak out thinking something bad happened? Did she have a slight memory of the event? Well, she had said, I think in one of the things, I can't remember what it is, I don't have it in front of me, but in one of the things she said that she knew that that John was going to come home because his niece was there, and he wasn't going to stay out all night. So when she woke up and he wasn't there, she panicked and knew something was wrong. I'm still processing the judge asking, what if the Commonwealth doesn't call Proctor? How could they not call him? What evidence is his that no one else can testify to? Yeah, they have to, right? I mean, he's the lead investigator. It's crazy. Crazy. My inbox is crazy too. I have so many locals that are upset. Yeah, and I hope that this, if nothing else, I hope that this puts a microscope on, the investigation and how they do things, and, doing things by the book, because if you don't, then that can create this, what has become a circus. This is one of the things that I've heard a lot from people too, that way too many people, you know, coming by there that didn't see anything. I've also heard that the pictures of 34 Fairview make it look so very large, and really it's not. Yeah, so one of the people, well, he's in here right now, and I don't know if he wants me to out him, so I won't. But one of the people in our chat who lives, like, very, 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 very close to there, sent me a video, like a cell phone video, when he was driving by, and because he said the same thing, and he was like, it looks like, from the road, it makes it look like it's bigger. So he sent me a cell phone video of, like, driving by, and was trying to explain, like, how it's, you know, not as big as it looks in some of the pictures. Even a search at 6:20 a.m. for how long to die in the cold doesn't make sense. Who in their right mind would believe, in the midst of trying to save someone's life, that this request was made? Hello, welcome, welcome. You're late, you're late. HVAC says, I'm from Canton and I know all people involved. That front yard is tiny. Yeah. It does look big in, like, in some of the pictures too, but yeah, I've been hearing that a lot. But, all right, so let's take a look at some of the, let's take a look at some of the hearings, and how funny are those, those hearings where Bev is like, so, like, her sighs are really funny. She's like, cracks me up. She is just super annoyed all the time. All right, let's see. Here is my list. Let me get my notes. We're not gonna play all the hearings, like all of them, but I do want to look. That's not the one. God, I have so many notes on this. It is insane.
All right. Court's now in session. You may be seated.
Yeah, it'll take forever if we do them all.
The Rule 17 motion for the animal control records. My
colleague, Mr. Jackson, would be arguing that second, if the court pleases.
Okay. All right, I'll hear you.
I should have done timestamps. Okay, so the animal control record. So this is the part we're not gonna go through.
The motion to renew our motion.
Hold on, let me pull up the notes. Go to my email. Ow. Oh, that hurt. I moved that shoulder too fast. I can't even talk. Whew. All right, here it is. Okay, so this is the first one. Okay, and big shout out to our mod, Chrissy Bacon, and our mod, True Crime Ranch, for helping me go through and make notes on these. Oh, God, it still hurts. Because it would have taken forever for me to go back and do it. So huge thank you for that help. All right, so this one is the motion to compel, Rule 17. So this is the one that they are wanting to get the evidence. They don't have any of the evidence yet. So the defense. So they're wanting John O'Keefe's clothing, everything that was seized from Karen's vehicle, including like the taillight, the information, the data from the vehicle and the infotainment center, and the Canton Library video with the pertinent time frame. So they're arguing for that. So this is the one where they ask. Oh, sorry, it is still. Focus. It's like still throbbing. It only does that if I move. Okay, so they are asking the court to set a deadline for the Commonwealth to produce the evidence. What's funny about this is that this was May of last year, and now here we are a year later, and they just now finished giving all of the like they just now did their certificate of discovery, like literally as after jury selection had already started. So they had previously asked the court to, I gotta stop moving this arm. They had previously asked the court to do a deadline for this, and at the hearing a few months before this, and the court wouldn't do it. So they said that this is, coming at great personal cost to Karen Reed, and this is, of course, affecting her and her defense, and okay, I'm good. It's just every once in a while when I move it, it's like the pain lasts for like 3 minutes after that, and it's hard to even concentrate on anything. But it'll be fine. I'm going to stop moving. Okay, so Lally responded that they had contacted the lab after the previous motion on this and asked them to expedite the testing. The state lab said that they would do that and they could expect results by May 5th. He also followed up and said that they were on track. So in March, when he had contacted them, he said that they stated that some of their DNA evidence or some of their DNA testing would be exhaustive. So he sent the exhaustive testing form to the defense and on March 10th and was waiting for a response if they want to have an expert present. And then I want to get to this part. Let me find, this is Yannetti. I want to play the part with him.
Spoke with and filed the necessary paperwork with the, at least the district attorney's office or the state police's custody, warned by the lab that any testing of that for how to contact them, but that's where it stands. As far as the video is concerned.
All right, this is the video, the library video.
The video was provided by the IT director for the town of Canton. There was a share file that was shared with the troopers. The troopers, upon receiving that, it was Trooper Dunn who received that video, not Trooper Proctor. If I could just speak briefly as it pertains to Trooper Proctor, there is no conflict. Trooper Proctor is not conflicted in this case. I indicated that specifically in some of the oppositions that were filed to Rule 17. So there's been some photograph taken from a social media site which is purported to be Trooper Proctor with one of the McCabe's children who are a witness in the case. The child that's depicted in that particular photograph is not one of the McCabe's children.
Okay, so this is the part I was saying that this is why this didn't get shut down at this, because he said the children, and then he stopped and he said the child that's depicted, and then he goes on talking about a singular child, which is why it didn't shut any of this down. He is talking about the child that we already know is, Proctor's relative.
The McCabe's have 4 daughters. That's not one of them. It's a relative of Trooper Proctor. It has nothing to do with the McCabe's and nothing to do with this case. Whatever conflict counsel believes Trooper Proctor has just doesn't exist. Now, as far as the video was provided to Trooper Matthew Dunn of the CPAC unit with the district attorney's office, that was then shared with Ms. Crawford. It was a person in our office who specifically who deals with forensic and surveillance video and type evidence. It was then archived on our system. Recently, we reached out and spoke to the IT director with the town of Canton again. That share link I tried to send to council, email essentially wouldn't go through. We tried to open it, essentially it won't open. So the link expired within 30 days, within 60 days, if not 30 days of it being shared with our office, but the exact information that was provided by the town of Canton was archived by Ms. Crawford, was then provided to council at her arraignment in Superior Court, as well as I was able to download it onto a Citrix file, which I then shared with council earlier this week. So what we have as a video, what exists as a video, what we were given as a video for those relevant time frames was placed onto the archived within our system, was then placed onto a disk, and what's on the disk and what's been provided to council is what we received.
Okay. All right, your next motion?
That would be Mr. Jackson.
So that's the explanation for the library video, and for the that picture that people still fight about with in relation to Trooper Proctor and the kids. So the rest of this, when they talk about they were seeking summons for Canton Animal Control and Canton Town Clerk. Neither of those would provide any information to the defense without a court order, so he's wanting a court order. And as far as the injuries to John's arm, they are convinced that they came from an animal, Chloe. They mentioned Chloe being rehomed. Once the defense started asking questions about the dog, so this is kind of where they talk about all of that. They said that they believed that the tissue samples would support their theory, and they wanted all information they could get regarding the dog, if any evidence exists. And then they talked about how the dog was not great with strangers, which they say supports their theory. Lally responds on that one and says, because Jackson had said that they were saying that the arm injuries were possibly road rash. Lally says, we never said it was road rash. And he mentions the cocktail glass that was embedded in the vehicle, the video of John leaving Waterfall with the glass in his hand. Let's play that part, actually. I want to play that part.
Claims from the context of the rest of the evidence and the rest of the case. It's a little peculiar and conspicuously clear from the defendant's fact section that the damages to the right rear corner panel of the defendant's vehicle, embedded within the bumper to that vehicle, is pieces of a cocktail glass. The victim, Mr. O'Keefe, is last observed on surveillance video, external surveillance video from the Waterfall establishment that he left just prior to going to 34 Fairview, with a cocktail glass in his right hand. The same arm that's injured, the same type of glass that is then recovered from the bumper of the defendant's car. As the court is well aware, and I just stated for the record, under Rule 17, the defendant has the burden, or the moving party has the burden to establish that the documents are evidentiary and relevant. Secondly, that they are not otherwise procurable reasonably in advance of trial. Thirdly, that the party cannot properly prepare for trial without such production and inspection. And fourthly, that the application is made in good faith and is not intended as a general fishing expedition. The issue that the Commonwealth takes with the defendant's request as it applies to these particular records is with number 1 and number 4. The Commonwealth would submit that the showing from the defendant is simply insufficient to establish any relevancy or evidentiary value to these records. And then secondly, that this is the very epitome of a fishing expedition. The indication, even from the verbiage that's used by counsel in the motion, sort of sheds light as far as as I just stated, the sort of epitome of a fishing expedition. It's language such as "it could shed light," or "if true, this fact would undermine the prosecution's entire theory of the case." There have been a couple of theories that are stated within the context of counsel's motion. I can state for the record those are not the Commonwealth's theories. No one ever said that the vehicle struck Mr. O'Keefe in the head and that's what caused the injuries. That's actually not at all what the grand jury testimony or the evidence has shown throughout the course of this investigation and throughout the course of this case. But those could and if true, those very words by definition evince the very nature of this particular request. The first issue would be with the time frame. As it's stated within the motion, it's from 2015 to present. I'm not sure why so expansive a time frame is needed or necessary or relevant to anything that is a subject matter before the court. As counsel suggests, that photographs of Mr. O'Keefe's injuries suggest that he was severely beaten and left for dead, having sustained blunt force injuries to both sides of his face as well as to the back of his head. That there's evidence of defensive wounds. There's a cluster of deep scratches and puncture wounds to his upper arm and forearm. And then the defendant essentially asked the court to take the then inferential leap that these injuries, which are wholly inconsistent with the injuries noted by both the emergency medical personnel at Good Samaritan, where Mr. O'Keefe was taken immediately from the scene where his body was discovered, and from the medical examiner's finding and sworn testimony. So wholly inconsistent with those, that these are, then take the inferential leap that these are consistent with bite marks or scratch marks from an animal, specifically a dog. In support of these assertions, as counsel stated, there's an affidavit from Dr. Frank Sheridan that the injuries are consistent with animal claw or scratch marks. Doctor looked at and saw things that no one else saw as far as how the medical professionals detail what those injuries are. In those medical records, what the personnel at Good Samaritan, the doctors and nurses who examined Mr. O'Keefe when he came into their facility, they describe his injuries as a right superior orbital ridge region, approximately 7 millimeter laceration, positive for surrounding soft tissue, swelling and positive breath sounds bilaterally, pulseless, positive superficial abrasions to the right forearm. Dr. Scortibello, the medical examiner in this case who testified at length before the grand jury, described Mr. O'Keefe's right arm injuries as scratches caused by a blunt object. She described or noted that they appeared to be in a linear pattern. She detailed that she observed no signs of an altercation or fight from her thorough internal and external examination of Mr. O'Keefe. And lastly, she testified in great detail as to the swelling of his eyes being related to the fractures in his skull and how those manifested into the observable swelling and discoloration of his face. And essentially what she testified to was that there was a laceration on the right back of Mr. O'Keefe's head, that there was a skull fracture in that immediate area, the right parietal area of the victim's skull. That then caused a swelling on the brain, which she observed, as well as Dr. Stonebridge observed during her neuropathology examination of Mr. O'Keefe's brain post-mortem. That then caused the swelling underneath of the skull, caused the radiating skull fractures that she observed in Mr. O'Keefe's skull throughout, and that the essentially nowhere else for the blood to go, and the looseness of the vascular tissue behind the eye then causes both of the eyes to swell. There was no evidence that Mr. O'Keefe was beaten and left for dead. There was no evidence of any defensive wounds. She was specifically asked those questions and testified to that before the grand jury as to those injuries and how they sustained. There's absolutely no evidence that Mr. O'Keefe ever entered the residence at Fairview on that particular evening. Counsel mischaracterizes some other statements made by a witness, Mr. Brian Nagel, who had come to pick up his sister at the residence. She came out, he observed that vehicle. He observes that vehicle from the entirety of the time that he's there. So he's pulling on to Fairview. Ms. Reed is coming on to Fairview in the opposite direction. The right blinker on and a left blinker on. The operator of the vehicle that Mr. Nagel is in then essentially flashes his lights and allows Ms. Reed to pull in first. So Mr. Nagel is there the entire time that Ms. Reed pulls onto the street when she pulls up. Indicates that she initially pulls over to the right-hand side of the curb, then pulls the vehicle forward a little bit further. That's corroborated in testimony from a number of different people who were inside the house, as well as Mr. Nagel's sister, who then came out of the house and talked to her brother at the door of the truck that he was riding. Mr. Nagel further indicated that at no point did the brake lights come off, including the center top light of the SUV that he observed in front of the house. There were no footprints outside of the vehicle. He never saw anyone exit the vehicle. No one in the house reported ever having anyone come inside the house or seeing anyone exit the vehicle. And I'm a little confused just as far as counsel's statements, as far as the multiple people saw Mr. O'Keefe or never saw Mr. O'Keefe come into the house. Or if he comes into the house and he's attacked by the dog, I'm just a little confused as far as are they in the conspiracy, or are these people sort of let out of the conspiracy because they say something that doesn't further that conspiracy? If they're all in the house, and Mr. O'Keefe comes in the house and gets attacked by a dog and then gets dragged out to the bottom of the lawn and left there for dead, then why do they all testify that no one came into the house? It's consistent throughout the entirety of all the witnesses. It's consistent with Mr. Nagel as well. It's consistent with the forensic evidence. It's consistent with every piece of evidence that has come to light at this point. And there's further statements in regard to the dog. Some reported incidents several months after the death of Mr. O'Keefe. The counsel suggests ineluctably that the animal was violent and prone to violence from one incident that postdates this particular time frame of Mr. O'Keefe's death, and seems to punctuate that this circumspection on and on about how violent the dog is from an incident that he has no information about, whether or not it involved another animal, whether or not it involved another human, whether or not it involved what exactly the incident occurred. This is simply not what Rule 17 is to be used for. That's what the case law has consistently held, is that it is not a discovery tool. It is based on information, relevant evidentiary support, which is completely and utterly lacking in this particular motion, in this particular submission. So for those reasons, the Commonwealth would request that the motion be denied.
Okay.
I hate that noise that that kills my ears when it happens. Okay, so that is it's interesting now to look back at some of the arguments that have been made, you know, from the beginning. But so they plan to do the evidentiary hearing on the 25th, which they're supposed to both present the evidence to support their theory. So Jackson gets up after this, and he gives the defense's theory about Officer John O'Keefe being beaten and attacked by the dog, says that the Commonwealth's theory about the cocktail glass causing his arm injuries is a new one. He says that the Apple Health data has more support, and he says that Ryan Nagel's testimony was that he arrived after Karen Reed and didn't see anyone in the car with her, and the taillight was still intact. And then, of course, Lally says they still go back and forth about Ryan Nagel's testimony. That's why some of these, and with everything being so messed up, that's why I'll be glad to like finally hear from the witnesses and see what they have to say, and see who we think makes most sense. Let's see. So this is where they talk about the motions to impound regarding the cell phone information for Brian Albert and Jim McCabe, autopsy photos, John O'Keefe's niece's name in some of the documents, no public release for any of that, and the parties agree. Lastly, the phone of Karen Reed, which was lawfully seized, contained communication with her and Yannetti. So the Commonwealth says that they stopped looking at it and gave it to the AG examiner, who had a conflict of interest because he knew John O'Keefe. So another examiner took the phone to examine. That's what we have for... What just happened? What just happened? All my stuff just exited out. And I don't know why. All right. All right, so May 24th. Let's get to that one. Get to that one. God, it is still hurting. May 24th, January 5th. Alright,
Tori, can I see you for a second, please? I will hear you.
I'm going to skip through the arguments for the impounding of the phones for the, or not impounding the phone, for the other people.
When Rule 17 motions are filed. This is not the usual circumstance. The usual circumstance is A Rule 17 motion is filed. It's supported by an affidavit. It's supported by a memorandum of law. And then there's oral argument regarding whether the affidavit has made a sufficient showing with sufficient specificity to justify having tangible objects and or documents subpoenaed to court. That's not what we have here. What we have here is a Rule 17 motion that has been properly filed with supporting affidavits that justify the summonsing in of Brian Albert's phone and his phone records and Ms. McCabe's phone records. But then we have an opposition by the Commonwealth with a competing affidavit. So Mr. Albert's attorney says today that this court should just look at the affidavits and make a ruling on the motion. I posit to the court, how are you supposed to do that? How are you supposed to evaluate competing affidavits and then resolve issues that are strictly focused on credibility? The only way that you can do that, Your Honor, is by having those witnesses come to court, testify before Your Honor, subject to cross-examination, and then you make findings of fact which would allow you to then make rulings of law on the Rule 17 motion. So we start at a baseline of our expert needs to testify, their expert needs to testify. In fact, we intend to call their expert as a witness first. And when I say expert, I'm talking about Trooper Guarino, which is the witness that we have been provided notice of right from the beginning, where we've just been notified at the last minute of the Commonwealth now trying to retain an outside expert, apparently feeling that Trooper Guarino is not adequate. So my co-counsel...
Okay, so... All right, so Trooper... I'm just making sure I was not muted. Trooper Guarino... So he's the one, we hear a lot. We hear his name a lot because the data points and all of that stuff that we've talked about is from Trooper Guarino. I can't even talk. Guarino. So that's why we hear his name a lot. So, we've talked about how this is potentially going to come down to like a battle of the experts. And I think one of the things that they're going to have to be able to, really explain is some of the information about the data points. And actually, let me show you something. Speaking of the data points, one of the things that I noticed, let me find it. Y'all know I love to chart stuff out. One of the things that I thought was weird. Here it is. These data points that they had, this came from the Commonwealth's papers. I thought it was really interesting because they don't go in order. And I feel like they would, for the most part. So I plotted them out because I was curious on to like how, because I mean it would be, if like you're moving from like up here to down here, then you would expect it to be like, kind of, even if it goes back and forth, it's still going to be pretty much in the same area. But that's not what these do. Hold on, let me show you. These are, follow the red X. That's how they're plotted. Oh, hold on. I gotta go to the next one. Then back up there, back down. That's how they are plotted. So, hold on. Let me go back to the beginning. All right, so this is the beginning. Watch it again. These are how, if you follow the red X, then that goes in order of the numbers. This is, and I thought this was very interesting. These are those plotted location points. I mean, that's a lot of variation, which I find interesting. So, wanting to have a separate explanation of the Trooper Guarino's report and data points makes sense to me. See, I think it's strange too, because I feel like if those data points go in order, in numerical order, then that makes no sense. If they don't go in numerical order, then why don't they? That's weird. But also, the variation is all back and forth. So I'll be curious to see how they explain that during trial, because that's a question that I still have.
May have something to say about that, but regardless, Your Honor, there needs to be expert testimony, first of all, to resolve this factual dispute. And once we have expert testimony, we have an evidentiary hearing, despite the fact that the Commonwealth now says that they don't want an evidentiary hearing after agreeing to it, setting this date down, having the court rearrange its schedule, and having...
That was from John's phone.
People fly in for it. Now they say they don't want one. They can't avoid it, because the only way they avoid it is by conceding our affidavit. If they don't concede that affidavit, if they don't concede the factual underpinnings of our Rule 17 motion, then they're asking for an evidentiary hearing, because that's the only way that they contest it. So now we get to Mr. Albert and Ms. McCabe. If I can deal with them in the opposite order in terms of how they spoke.
Sure.
With regard to Ms. McCabe, counsel states that she's been interviewed, she testified before the grand jury, she's been cooperative, etc., etc. The one thing he did not say is whether she's been asked by anybody on the government side, or by anybody, period. Did you Google at 2:27 a.m. in the morning, 3.5 hours before anybody supposedly knew that John O'Keefe was lying on the lawn of Brian Albert's house, did you Google how long to die in the cold? Nobody has asked her that. There can be no more relevant question with regard to our Rule 17 motion. We have made allegations in this motion that point to a third-party culprit defense here, Your Honor. And Your Honor has recognized that third-party culprit defense in your prior ruling on our motion for animal control records. It is a credible theory. We believe at the end it will be revealed to be the truth in this case. And in order to pursue that theory, ultimately, after the evidentiary hearing, we'll be arguing that we need Brian Albert's phone, which is both relevant and material. But again, that will be an argument for a later time to be made by my co-counsel. So now we're at the stage where we need to prove the factual underpinnings of our motion. And part of the reason why this is not a motion to reconsider any prior ruling that the court made, it's a brand new motion, that's because we have brand new information. Since we filed the last motion, we've had the opportunity to go through Ms. McCabe's phone. We've seen that Google search. We've seen all the deletions that she's made.
Please, you need to be muted. You need to be muted. Thank you.
We've seen, as our expert has averred, in support of this motion, 18 phone calls that were deleted, 2 of which went to Nicole Albert, 1 of which went to Brian Albert, shortly after my client discovered John O'Keefe's body on the lawn of Brian Albert's house. The call to Brian Albert was deleted. Ms. McCabe, we have averred with specificity, took a screenshot of Brian Albert's contact information, which would lead you to believe that she's sending it to somebody, but then she deleted that screenshot later in the day. There were multiple deletions. So we need to prove that. These are allegations that we've made in an affidavit supporting a Rule 17 motion. The Commonwealth has contested it, And now the Commonwealth is taking the position, and Ms. McCabe's attorney is taking the position that, oh, okay, we're contesting that this ever happened. My client's innocent. She was just cooperating with the government. And yet, we don't want you to ask her any questions about it. She possesses that information. She has relevant and material information about what was on her phone or not on her phone, what she did or didn't do, and that all contributes to our basis to ultimately get Brian Albert's phone. With regard to Brian Albert's attorney's argument that we don't know what's in his phone, and we are just on a fishing expedition, that couldn't be further than from the truth. Ms. McCabe's phone has revealed the contact that she had with Brian Albert. We know that there are going to be records of that call that she made to him that she deleted from her phone. We know from the remainder of the evidence, including the evidence that John O'Keefe took 80 steps and climbed 3 floors, which we averse proves that he went inside that house. We have...
Okay, are you beyond the motion to quash right now and arguing the substance of the motion?
Well, I guess the reason I'm bringing this up, Your Honor, is that he possesses testimony and evidence that is relevant and material to our Rule 17 motion. They're trying to quash his testimony, saying that we're harassing him or that we're being oppressive. We're not. We're just looking for the information that he has that will either confirm or contradict their expert or our expert or both. So, again, this is not a fishing expedition by any means. These witnesses possess relevant and material information. This court should order that they stand to testify pursuant to the subpoenas that were duly and properly served upon them, and we would ask you to deny the motions to quash.
All right.
So this goes back directly to all of the information or all of the argument for them to try to get the phones. And of course, we heard recently that Brian Albert also got rid of his phone. The thing that I think has raised the most questions about that is that the police report was altered, and it was not like there was, a supplement done or something like that. It was changed, which is, of course, problematic. But they took Brian Albert's phone number off of it, and then he got rid of his phone and got a different, I think if he had just gotten a different phone, people get different phones. But the fact that his phone number was removed from the police report is part of what fuels that argument that, there's something to look at there. Let me see.
Those injuries occurred inside the house.
Oh, this is...
The timestamp associated when Safari was exited out of.
Oh, I didn't go back far enough.
That would be the perfect opportunity, even
this is
if
for
it's limited to the experts on the issue of the Google search.
Okay, so I understand, Mr. Jackson, that you wanted an evidentiary hearing. There will not be one, so let's hear you on the merits of the Rule 17.
Okay, so this was another thing, too, that was, for anybody who missed it, this was another thing, too, that was kind of argued as, during their argument for Judge Canoni to recuse herself, because they were given an evidentiary hearing date, which was supposed to be the day after this hearing. This hearing was scheduled... This hearing took place on March 24th. They were supposed to have an evidentiary hearing the next day. They had, their expert fly out for it and everything. And then all of a sudden they get to the date, and even though it had been talked about. It was in writing. It was decided. It was agreed on between the Commonwealth and the defense. The judge said it. Like all of the things. Everybody agreed there was going to be an evidentiary hearing the next day, the day after this, and then they get to it, and the judge is like, "No, we're not going to do one." So obviously, that's really messed up. I don't care which side you're on. That's really messed up. If you're, very anti-defense, then you'll say it's not, but it is. It is. I mean, for all parties involved to agree that there's going to be one and then wait until the day, there and not do it, it is messed up.
Your rights are saved. That's clear. Your rights are saved. Okay?
Thank you.
All right.
With regard to the Rule 17, our question would be, what is the Commonwealth so desperately afraid of? Why are they so desperately afraid of us getting the materials, the documents, the data, and the physical phone that we've sought, respectively, under the Rule 17 motion for Brian Albert's phone and the data associated therewith, for Jennifer McCabe's cell phone data as it pertains to the cell records? What are they afraid of? They seem to be desperately fearful that we're actually going to get to the truth of what actually happened on January 29th, 2022. In their motion, or in their opposition, they've indicated, Your Honor, there's...
Hold on real quick. I want it before the chat moves, and I can't answer this. Ms. Smith says, what kind of phone did John have there? Has there been any mention of a phone in the cold for long periods of time? I'm not sure if it drains my battery or just kills the phone itself. This is something that I thought about too. Remember which trial was it? Zachariah Anderson, maybe? Where the phone was put in the freezer because it kills it. So that's something I'd wondered about too. But they said that the phone was found underneath him. So if it was found underneath him, then his body temperature could have kept it from going dead.
There's nothing to see here. All of this was dealt with back in September of 2022, and there's nothing new here. It's clearly not a regurgitation of the 2022 motion. It's a completely different set of facts that we have and we've presented before the court. How long to die in cold? Spelled Haas long to die in cold. A search conducted by Jennifer McCabe at or before 2:27 in the morning. That's a very, very nuanced and very important distinction. The 2:27 a.m., 2:27 and 42nd a.m. search, or timestamp associated with that search, is the timestamp associated when Safari was exited out of. So she could have made the search and did make the search at some point just prior to 2:27 in the morning, some 3.5 hours before John O'Keefe was found dying in the cold in front of Brian Albert's house. That's new fact number one. The Apple Health data that establishes that John O'Keefe took 80-odd steps at or between 12:21 a.m. and 12:24 a.m., that he climbed the functional equivalent of 3 flights of stairs. Fact number two. Fact number three is John O'Keefe's phone pinged at or near the location of Brian Albert's house. That's not a coincidence that Brian Albert has 3 floors in his home, or did at the time. John O'Keefe's injuries, the injuries to his arm. Although those were mentioned in September of 2022, we didn't have Dr. Sheridan's report. This court has already opined on the relevance of Dr. Sheridan's report and his opinions and conclusions. That's new evidence. It establishes unequivocally that given the fact that those are dog bite, dog scratches, and those occurred at or near the time of his death, that means that those scratches occurred inside the house. Those bites occurred inside the house. Those injuries occurred inside the house. The dog was, according to Mr. Albert's own testimony, the dog was never outside the house. He was never in the front yard. Additional new information. 7 separate phone calls from Jennifer McCabe's phone to Brian Albert Counsel had made a very bold statement. There is no evidence in his moving papers. There's absolutely no evidence of any phone calls between Brian Albert and Jennifer McCabe on January 28th or January 29th. That is provably false. There were no fewer than 7 phone calls that we can prove, and we believe that the cell phone records of Jennifer McCabe will likely prove other calls as well. The court has to understand, I think, and it's important to understand, not only do we have information that she deleted materials from her phone that we can find that are deleted in the Celebrite extraction, the Axiom extraction, the Art X2 extraction, the Belkasoft extraction, the Sanderson extraction. Those are all different tools that our expert has used that established every one of these calls were made. There were also deletions that we can't account for. What do I mean by that? Other people's phones. There was another call made to Julie Albert. She testified to a call having been received from Jennifer McCabe to Julie Albert. She testified to that, and there is no data in the Celebrite extraction in Jennifer McCabe's phone to support that. That means that call was deleted and not found. Where would we find that verification? In Jennifer McCabe's cell phone records. There was a call made apparently to, or communication made to, Karen Reed's phone. We know that to be a fact. It came from Jennifer McCabe's phone. That also was not recovered in the Celebrite extraction. Where would that phone be, where would that call or communication be verified? In Jennifer McCabe's cell phone records. The screenshot of Brian Albert, that's Brian Albert's contact information. We know that there was a screenshot taken on Jennifer McCabe's phone of his contact information. There's only one reasonable explanation for why she would take a screenshot of Brian Albert's contact information, and that would be to conveniently share that contact information with another person. We know the first half of that the screenshot was taken and deleted. We don't know the second half. But this information would reveal it, and we're trying to verify that. Again, this is all new information that was unknown to the defense in or around September of 2022 when we filed our first motion. This is very much not a motion to reconsider. It's a completely new motion for summonses pursuant to Rule 17. The Commonwealth has disputed nearly every one of the facts that I've presented this morning, and nearly every one of the facts that has been presented in the attached application. In doing so, the prosecution has clearly created the issues that have to now be resolved by the court. The court has the competing affidavits. I believe that we have made a valid showing of relevance, materiality. We have to have the information in order to propound and present the third-party culpability defense, which the court noted in its ruling on the Rule 17 motion associated with the dog records, the animal control records. That's exactly what we're trying to do in furtherance of that with relation to Brian Albert's phone and the data associated therewith, Jennifer McCabe's phone, which we already have, and the concomitant information surrounding that phone, which would be her cell phone records. We know that the cell phone is not complete. Her records would be more complete and paint a more complete picture. We know that Brian Albert, and by the way, there's nothing close to a fishing expedition in this case, which is that's the safe harbor that counsel constantly runs to when they don't have anything else to argue. Oh, no, you can't let the defense actually propound their theory of liability, their third-party culpability theory of liability. We don't want them to be able to go there because it's just fishing. Well, the twist under Massachusetts law is that we don't know what we don't know. That's true. But we have a good faith belief that information relevant and material to our defense of third-party culpability, third-party liability, is in the phone and is on the records, in Brian Albert's phone and Jennifer McCabe's records. And that's why we've asked for these things. We have not made this overly broad. It's highly tailored. It's highly narrowed. And all due respect to counsel's suggestion that witnesses are being harassed, we didn't pick these witnesses. We didn't pick any of these witnesses. The Commonwealth picked the witnesses. The Commonwealth chose to move forward with the allegations against Karen Reed, and the facts of the case chose the witnesses. We didn't pick Brian Albert out of a hat. It was Brian Albert's house. He was one of the last people to see John O'Keefe alive. It was Brian Albert's yard in which John O'Keefe died that morning. It was Brian Albert that Jen McCabe was talking to throughout the day on the 29th. 7 different calls that we're aware of, at least one of which she tried to delete as she tried to sanitize her phone before turning it over to the police. These are witnesses that are highly relevant and highly material to our production of evidence in furtherance of a third-party culpability defense to which Ms. Reed is richly entitled.
Okay, so this one goes on a little bit. Let me pull up my notes. Handy dandy notepad. Okay, so Judge Canoni ended up, she quashed the defense's subpoenas for Brian Albert and Jen McCabe's phones, denied the request for the hearing. Because, like I said, this whole thing, they were supposed to have this the next day, and they were supposed to, like, they had witnesses and stuff, that experts and stuff they were going to call. Is there anything else major from this one? I can't think of anything else major from this one.
Something that is actively done by the user. So to simply say, oh, this information was deleted from the phone is not an indication that Ms. McCabe deleted that information from the phone. It's something that happens as data is stored, as data is set aside to such things as this wall file. There is a search at 2:27 and 40 seconds in the morning.
Oh, that's what I wanted to play. Hold on, let me find
Ms.
that.
McCabe, almost motion, a dissenting motion. Your rights are saved. That's clear. Your rights are saved. Okay?
Thank you.
All right.
With regard to the Rule 17 happened
Wait, where's
on
the...
2:27 in the morning. That's a very, very nuanced and very important distinction. The 2:27 a.m., 2:27 and 42nd a.m. search, or timestamp associated with that search, is the timestamp associated when Safari was exited out of. So she could have made the search and did make the search at some point just prior to 2:27 in the morning.
Okay, so he says here, he says here, oh gosh. Hold on.
Timestamp associated with that search. Is the timestamp associated when Safari?
Oh, when he says it's the timestamp when Safari exits, or when she exits out of Safari. So this is the same thing that the programmer was saying about this version of iOS. When you exit out of Safari or close the tab, that is one of the things that will trigger that checkpoint that he was talking about, where it writes that information from the temporary wall file onto the main database. So that goes with what the programmer was saying. Okay, moving right along. At one of, let me see, I think that's all my main ones for that one. So in the September hearing, they are back in court again in the September hearing, and defense attorney Elizabeth Little is up there. This is the one where she talks to, and we stream this live. There's one where she talks about how the the Commonwealth has still not turned over the evidence that they were waiting on, that they've had in their possession for 21 months. She said that there are 56 items of physical evidence that the defense has not been able to inspect or test, including the taillight pieces, the clothing that John was wearing when he died. So here they are in September, 6 months after that first one that we just watched, where she was arguing that same thing, and you know, 6 months later, they still didn't get any of it. What else was on that one? She said that they've been pushing back based on the lab protocols and procedures. The Commonwealth was saying that that's what was keeping them from accessing the evidence, but she said that that the Commonwealth, or that the discovery is mandatory, and if it's within police possession, which of course it is, if it's at the Massachusetts State Police Crime Lab, then they are still allowed to have access to it. They also talked about the SUV. They were granted, she requested to be granted the information with the infotainment system in the car. Lally said that he responded to all this and said that he had given nearly 300 items of discovery, and he said that he recognized that yes, there's an issue with some of it not making its way to Elizabeth Little and to Reed, along with lab testing delays, but he said he's not withholding evidence. I want to end this poll. And then about the infotainment center thing, he said that the telematics isn't as simple as it sounds. They have to, we watched this one live, but they have to go through the, there's different software that you use to interpret it, kind of how they have like Celebrite or Axiom and that type of thing. There's different programs that you use for interpreting the infotainment center information as well. Okay, so y'all said the poll that we did, Apple Health, 65% of you think that Apple Health data is more reliable, and 34% of you think that the cached location points that they charted are more reliable. It'll be interesting to see what they say about all that. Okay, so in the September one, they also talked about the human hair. Is it a human hair? Is it tested? Is it this? Is it that? So they went over all of that. Okay, that was one thing. Let's talk about that for a second too, because that's one thing that I thought was really interesting, because they talked about this in this motion today. The defense withdrew their motion to exclude the Bodie Labs testing based on it not being done in time and all of that. They withdrew that, which I find really interesting. You know, this is the thing that they have been fighting over this for. I mean, it sat there for a year, 13 months. It sat there for 13 months untouched. And then there's all the argument about, you know, the delays, and then Lally said that there was significant delays from the defense, and it turns out the significant delays from the defense was 3 weeks, as opposed to the 2-year one. But okay. So in this September one, they talk about that too. Lally told the judge that the DNA testing of the root end of the hair was problematic because it was so small. State lab does not have the ability to do the mitochondrial DNA testing. So this is when we hear them say that there was no human DNA found. They did test the root end of the hair, but there was no human DNA found. And this is when they the defense asked to have their own expert be able to take a look at it before they do the mitochondrial testing. And she said, no, your expert cannot take a look at it first. It's going straight to the Commonwealth's expert. And so that's what they did. And now they're going to let it in. So, what else? And Lally did say in one of those last hearings, he said that, that the hair, I can't remember the exact clip. I played it in the, podcast. I have him explaining it in the podcast. But he said that in that April 12th hearing, I think is what it was, he said that the results came back and he said it is a hair. It was confirmed that it's a hair. And he said that he was able to get the mitochondrial DNA profile back. So, but now defense has withdrawn their request to exclude it. So interesting. This is also when they bring up the snowplow driver. So the snowplow driver, this is when Unetti said the snowplow driver's testimony should end this case. Nobody at 2:30 a.m. means Karen Reed is innocent. So this is when they talk about all of that, and the Ford edges and all of that stuff. Again, I'm not going to play too many of the clips because of time. And plus I've had them all on my podcast episodes in the last few weeks. So he said in one of the hearings that the DNA profile was complete for the hair sample, and the DNA profile was complete for the sample from John O'Keefe. And he said that when he talked to the labs at that time, that their preliminary their preliminary look at it or whatever was that they were consistent with each other. So he asked to have a report to give to court about that, and they would not give him a report for that. They said that that goes against their accreditation to be able to say that, to be able to give a report, because they hadn't done all the testing yet. So they would not give him a report for that. What else went on for that one? That is also the one where he said that Lally said there is no connection between Proctor and the Alberts, and then like everybody in the courtroom started, like they all did this. Like, I can't believe he just said that. What else? Okay. What else? The motion. Okay, so the next one, there's the motion for protective order. Phone. Commonwealth wishing to suppress the 6 letters. That one, we're not going to get too much into that right now. I'm trying to get like some of the main evidence arguments that we've had over the course of all of these. And as things come up, that's the hearing. That next hearing too is where they argued about the recorded interviews with Karen Reed, with Boston Magazine. More arguments over a fishing expedition. February 26th. Ow. In the February hearing, they had the motion to continue, and the motion to dismiss, and the motion for sanctions and disqualification. I really wanted to do a stream on those new unsealed documents for that, but I just have not had time. And then the one time that I had time, I ended up sick for 3 days. Let's see. Because there was some new stuff in there. Some of that stuff we can talk about maybe on lunch breaks next week and beyond. TUI request. See, there's still more of this. Maybe we'll end here, and maybe I'll do a short stream on the rest of the ones that have been from this year, and I can take the notes that I have and put some of it together so it can kind of be linear rather than trying to find the clips with the notes, because I'm tired. All right, let's see. That was wild what Glare put together about the Google searches last night. What about the Google searches? The hair was a big deal in Lori's trial. I hope no one in my house is ever harmed. My hair is everywhere. My hair is everywhere too, y'all. I mean everywhere. Everywhere. Are you still streaming the trial with Melanie? Yeah, we're not. I don't think we're doing every day together, but I think we're going to do joint streams sometimes. I think I'll talk to her and figure it out, but yeah, it'll be great to have have some legal insight, because I'm full of opinions, but having an attorney who knows law will be nice to have. I can't wait to see the driver of the car with Ryan Nagel testify. He was never interviewed by the cops, and I've heard that he will testify that he saw John get out of the car and run into the house. I'm curious to see what, because I know there's going to be rumors about everybody and what they're going to testify to, so I'm ready to actually hear them. I wish they would go in order from who I want to hear from, but I guess that's... Lally saying the hair DNA was consistent with John means absolutely nothing. Yeah, I mean, which is why, you know, they said that they wouldn't do the report. They wouldn't give him a report for court because all of the testing had not been completed yet. So, and I don't blame them for that. You know, he said that that goes against their accreditation, so I don't blame them. I think that's great of the lab to, you know, to keep with protocol for that, because it's stuff like that that, you know, that makes things go off the rails. And also, based on what we've seen, you know, especially with that whole, she saw him smashing their head into the thing. I don't, like, I want to hear it from testimony under oath, not from attorneys giving their, you know, what they're saying. This is why we're here. The cops didn't follow protocol. I feel like if there had been, and I say this, I know I sound like a broken record, y'all. I feel like if they had done things the way that it should be done, then we wouldn't be here. Because either way, you know, it's too much. It's too much. Too many issues. All right. Do you think Karen will testify? I don't think she needs to. I doubt it. But you never know. I always say that I don't think any of them need to. Defendants should not take the stand. Very rarely. I'll say that very rarely. Because think about like Travis Rudolph, like his was great, you know. He, of course, because he was, you know, him and his brother and his mom, all of their testimonies were great because you could tell that he was being sincere and honest. But most of the time, remember Richard Merritt when he took the stand and we were all like, no, you shouldn't be testifying. But he did. He did. All right, I'm going to call it a day, y'all. I am tired and I'm ready to start my weekend. I am really ready for Monday. I'm really ready for Monday. Yeah, reportedly she said she will testify. We'll see. I think a lot of it's going to depend on how the case goes too, like how the trial goes. Yeah, that's my whole point. After hearing him say that, I don't trust what he says in there. I included that in episode 10 too, that clip. All right, y'all. What a week this has been. I will let you know about our Meet the Mods live on Sunday. I haven't talked to them yet to find out who can do what times or if we're going to do it or whatever. So I will let y'all know about that. I'll post it on the community tab and let you know. So if we don't do that, then I'll have a 3-day weekend. If we do that, then I'll have almost a 3-day weekend, which is still just as good. But I am going to get as much time outside as I possibly can because I know that I'm about to live at this computer, y'all. So, all right. I appreciate y'all hanging out. Please check out the podcast if you haven't yet. Give a review if you haven't yet. It's funny because the bad reviews that I've gotten have been people that are saying that it's people that haven't even listened, and I can tell. Did I happen to get a package? I have not been to the P.O. box, but I can go check it this afternoon. I have not been up there in a while. Since last week, I think. So I can check it. All right, y'all. Enjoy your weekends. Rest up. We have very important jury duty on Monday. I can't believe it's almost here. It's almost here. It's crazy. I appreciate you all. Thank you so much. Huge shout out again to Chrissy Bacon and True Crime Ranch for helping me with all of my notes, and to all of our other incredible mods who just keep this place going. I love it. Love y'all. All right, you jurors, I will see y'all next week. Hopefully I will be tan and well rested and ready to take on this crazy case. We'll see how it goes. All right, love y'all.
Yeah, I gotta go. I can't stick around here forever.
Everybody was wonderful. Everybody behaved. Everybody's always so nice to me.
Just love your channel.
Good morning.
Goodbye, good people. Now, how the heck do I get out of here?